Biff, where do witches turn to do all their research?
Good Lord. Where do witches turn to do all their research, Jacques?
Wikipedia.
Yeah, great.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so this now this isn't failed racism or microaggression or anything like that. It's just a
it's
just
successful
a joke.
racism, right?
It's successful racism. What do you get when you cross a ninja with an octopus?
Oh my god! What do you get when you cross a ninja with an octopus?
Disappearing ink. Because ninjas just kind of disappear, and octopus have like ink. So there you have it. Anyways, you look. Yeah. You had a few weeks off from the awful jokes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just wanted to remind you made a very bad decision. You made a bad decision. Hey, let's get right into it. Biff, what's your favorite Jimmy Caan movie?
I mean, you got so definitely, The Godfather is a big one, right? He's Sonny in Godfather is obviously huge, and then Misery is also pretty amazing. Oh. So I think those are the two that kind of come to mind first. But he did a lot of stuff. Like Rollerball. I remember Rollerball.
Well, I literally am one of the rare people who remember Rollerball vividly, because we saw that maybe 6 or 7 times one summer. Yeah. The first part of the summer, it was a feature movie at the drive-in, near our house. And then the second half of the summer, it was like the second feature or the first feature that went on, it's kind of dusk. Let's show the first. So honestly, there was one summer I must have seen it like 8 times. Dude, that was great. No, I'm going with Elf. I'm going, obviously, probably my second favorite Christmas movie.
Sure.
The making of
after Goonies.
After Goonies, of course.
No, not Goonies. After Gremlins. Gremlins.
No, I was going with Batman '98 when it was around Christmas. No, but seriously,
that's not a Christmas movie.
If you see the movies that made us, the documentary series on Netflix, they do a making of Elf, and the whole story with how they got Jimmy Caan and how Jimmy Caan was on set. It's just delicious. But we're talking about it because we lost Jimmy Caan last week, and
yesterday, right? Or whatever. Well, a couple of days ago, whatever.
And he 82. But my favorite all time thing is Conan got him and Abe Vigoda back together. Like I don't know if it was on the LA show, but I think it was back when Conan was still in New York.
Right.
And they had them redo that scene. and Abe Vigoda is buying time. It's like, well, can we go to lunch first, Sonny? Yeah, I could eat. And then they're 5 or 6 minutes of haggling about what restaurant to go to, before Abe Vigoda's character gets in the car and meets his demise. It was just business, Sonny. Yeah. It wasn't personal. So that, just another piece of, classic Hollywood, icona just gone. Before I start, I'm going to give a big shout out because we got an awful to get to, but I want to start with a couple positive things. Friend of the podcast way back. I mean, when Joe and I started this really early on, our friend Tracy, who's a clown, and I'm not talking about her personality, although she is, but she's a party clown, and she goes by the name Funbag. She's a theater teacher. She's an early childhood, special educator. She's awesome. She has for the last couple of years taught at this Islamic school nearby, a middle school, and fought tooth and nail to put on a play. They had never done a play before, and was given no budget, no support from the administration. She sunk all the money into it herself. She spent a lot of money. She made the props herself. She made the costumes. She brought a bunch of the kids because they did Willy Wonka Jr. and it's the same play that my son's school did a few months back. And those kids had never been to a play.
Right,
And
right.
and my kids' school, they've had this drama program for 20 years. They have a great lighting system, a great sound system. They always have an amazing crew from the high school who were former students at the school who come back to help, do all the gosh, I should know the term, but they're the ones that move the props on and off the stage, and they all dress like black head to toe, so it's kind of seamless.
They're not like grips, right? I don't know.
Grips.
Whatever.
But
I don't know what they are.
so when my kid's school does a play, they have great backdrops and great props, and it's still a high school, junior high play, but this is the one school in town, not the other schools do it, so he's very lucky as far as that goes. She brought some kids. They essentially saw Hamilton on Broadway with Lin-Manuel, and the original cast. I mean, they were so blown away. Flash forward a few months later, they're putting on their play, and it's outside. It's under a couple pop tents. The props that they have were homemade by, our friend Tracy. They didn't have the regular music, like the karaoke version, so the kids kind of had to sing over. When they started the production, there was only one mic to pass between the kids. They didn't have the lavalier mics.
Right,
dude,
right. Yeah.
I mean, just before the play started, they had originally set up the chairs for like first, second graders. So here a 230-pound guy sitting on like a first grade, and then the truck showed up late with the regular chairs. It was a cluster. Everything that could go wrong was going wrong. Technical problems, audio problems.
Right.
Not one of them to talk with this podcast. All of that said, I'm sitting there and I'm watching these kids, so nervous, never done anything, and just it was palpable how off they were and how nervous they were. And at the same time, like I said, there was no real support from the administration. And then it just started to flow. And these kids had the absolute time of their lives. Their parents were just welling up in tears, the same way I am when my little guy comes on stage, with great props and costumes and the lights. You don't need any of that. And what my friend Tracy was able to cobble together, she gave these kids something so special that for decades they will be talking about. Their parents, they were barely done filming their son or daughter scene, and they're posting it and they're sending out, and you could just see them swelling up with pride. And it was just so magical. It really was. The kids got lost in it. Like they got over the nervousness after the first few minutes, and it flowed. And they involved so many people, who wanted to be part of it. It was such a welcoming thing. My friend Tracy has a couple nephews who do not go to the school there, who she has do other theater things with her, and she brought them into the fold as Oompa Loompas. One of these kids has been to our house a dozen times in the last year. I didn't recognize him, but I'm with my little guys, and I'm like, oh my God, look at that kid. He was dressed as an Oompa Loompa. And I said to one of my sons, I'm like, I would love to take a picture and send that to Mama, but it's a little creepy to take pictures of other people's kids. You just don't.
Yeah.
You just don't, and then
unless you could get your kid in there, you want to get a picture of your kid that happens to be with the other kid, right?
And if you're working that hard, you got to be on a watch list. Right. But then my little guy's like, oh no, that's Cordy. I'm like, that's Cordy? Oh, he looks so amazing. And I'm like, and Cordy's my friend Tracy's nephew. And she's like, so I'm like taking pictures of him and sending it to her and my wife. And I'm like, oh my God, look at Cordy. He looks so great. It was such a special moment that she pulled off. She got some support from like the students and students' parents and stuff like that. And it's funny because she, her contractor's up. She's leaving this, and people were very sad she was leaving. And then they saw what she really brought to the table, and the outpouring of, you can't possibly leave, please don't. It's like one of those things. It's like, I promise I won't cheat on you again. You know what I mean? Like it was once you're out the door. But honestly, you don't need props. You don't need, great sound and lighting. You just need a love of this. And it was so special what she pulled off and what she did for those families and for those kids. Honestly, she's an amazing person. Before we get into awfulness, I wanted to take a couple seconds and give a big shout out to our friend Tracy Funbags the Clown, who we should have back on. It's like if I go back and repost that, oh my God, is she a riot? She's just one of the funniest, sweetest people we know. But
and just in general, right? I mean, I think it's really great that there's a certain I'm not one of those people that think that people from other places have to acclimate and all that stuff. But at the same time, when they're able to do stuff that's kind of like normal stuff that kids do, kind of a thing, right? I mean, I think those little things, I think they do go a long way. So good. Obviously great for her, and super great for the kids, right?
I'm so happy. So we haven't done a podcast in a bit. I've done so much traveling. You've been doing some traveling. I don't even think we've talked about my trip to Chicago.
No. Yeah.
So it's just so many moving pieces. I came out there. The wife went to Ibiza in May, and she wasn't home, I don't think, a day or 2 days. And then me and my oldest guy had our trip to LA. So, we could have the triumphant return to John Taylor Fertilizer Incorporated, LLC franchise.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Go out to Phoenix and, proud showing. We really showed up. I mean, we put on gear and we showed up.
And we were at all games that was scheduled.
We were. All
players attended the game.
We were 100 for 100. No, it was great. Maybe not sober, everybody, but hey, they were there. And then there was past players there in spirit, but that was great. As soon as I got back from that, it was only a matter of days, and then the wife had to go to Chicago for 3 weeks of work with her work family. We just have so many wonderful people in our lives who really, this is the family that my wife is now working for, understand, oh, this woman also has a family. This woman also has a husband and kids and feelings and a schedule and a life. And so when I called her and I said, hey, on the down low, I want to drive out there with our boys. Management has a birthday next week. And she's like, what day? Do you want that day off there? And she just worked so hard to make it happen.
That's cool. Yeah.
The boys and I, I threw them in the car at like 4 a.m. And it's funny because the route goes through Buffalo, and it's always surreal for me to be back in Buffalo because my dad and Richie Dunn and just having spent so much time there in the summers, and it's a special place. And the option to go through Niagara Falls, it's about the same distance in the time, to go through. And I'm like, oh, dude, it's early. I mean, I timed it out. I'm sorry, I left at like 9:10. So I pull over around 2, 3 in the morning, get a couple hours of sleep. And like 5:36, I'm like, you know what? Let's go to the falls. And just as I get to the gate, and it was like a zombie apocalypse movie, there was nobody going over the bridge one way or the other. It was a weird kind of, because it was a weekend thing. So it wasn't trucks going back and forth, delivering shit. It was like, a random like Saturday morning. And just when I got up, getting up to the gate, I'm like, with our passports and the vaccination cards out, I'm like, oh, fuck. I decided to bring the dogs. And I'm like, I don't have any of the dogs' paperwork. They didn't say a gosh darn thing. They were like, either he didn't notice or didn't say anything. And it was fun. We everything was closed. So I was able to double park right in front of like the touristy. This is the perfect place to take the picture spot. Took the pictures of the boys. It really upset. See, this is the kind of guy I am. I go way out of my way to drive my sons across the country to see their mom, to surprise my wife, but I'm going to do things that deliberately irritate her along the way. And when my oldest guy and I went out to LA, it was by accident. Like he grabbed my, I have 2 Golden Girl t-shirts, and he grabbed one by mistake he put it on, and we left the house in matching shirts. It made her laugh and horrified her at the same time. Which, you know, she knew better to not let me know it was going to annoy her. So I have both the little guys wear the matching Golden Girl shirts, a Hawaiian shirt, much like the one that you have on over it, you know, and took a bunch of pictures with her dogs at the falls, got back in the car, drove back. It was great. So we get out there. Chicago, as you know, it's, you know, depending on when you're there, it can be awful, bitter cold. It can be humid, like it could be worse than like Orlando in August, kind of sweltering. Why do humans
I don't know
live
if it's
here?
that, if it gets quite that bad.
Oh, it does. But
I
we hit.
mean, have you been to Orlando in August?
I sadly have. But we hit a window, dude. You know, it's where they shoot the Batman movies because the architecture is so gothic. It really is. And we took an amazing, on her birthday, we took an amazing 90-minute architecture tour via the boat, the river.
Yeah.
Dude, if it was 4 hours long, I would have been complaining it wasn't long enough. It was great. It was great. The weather was perfect. We were there for a week. She had no idea. We get to the mom, the family she's working for is staying with the mom's sister. And, you know, I'm texting with the mom, and she meets me outside, and she calls Ellen and says, "Hey, there's a package out here. Can you help me bring it in?" So when she came up from, you know, the kids downstairs, no idea that her sons and her dogs and, you know, her current husband would be standing there waiting for her. So that was great.
By the way, did you see any parrots?
Any
parrots?
You know, it's funny because you had said that. You had texted that, and I'm like, what? And then my wife asked her boss about it. So why don't you talk a little bit about the parrots of Chicago?
Well, so I actually had probably maybe 10 years ago, I had a 6-month project in Chicago, and every day we stayed in a downtown hotel, and then we took a cab, and there's that road that goes right next to those museums, right? And on one side is the museum, and then on the other side is this park. And one day, you know, whatever, early morning, I'm just like looking out the window, and I look at it, and I swear, that's a bird, and that's green, and that's a parrot. And I'm thinking, that's insanity. And it was like January, there was snow on the ground. So I said, well, this is insane. So immediately, as I got to the office, I looked up, you know, parrots, you know, Chicago, name of the park. And it turns out that it's actually, I think maybe technically a parakeet, but this, you know, this flock has basically settled and established itself. And just like obviously you lived in Pasadena, where there's, you know, major flocks of these, you know, parrots, same kind of thing, except in Chicago. And the funny thing is that I talked to some coworkers, and I was telling this guy about it, and he goes, wait a minute, I don't live there now, but I'm a lifetime Chicagoite. I lived there for, you know, 40 years of my life. How come I've never heard of this? I know I'm going to check it up myself to make sure you're not making this up. And sure enough, he looked it up and said, oh my God, I had no idea. You know, like apparently, like for whatever reason, I would have thought that kind of craziness would be known, but apparently it's not that well known.
You know, we saw a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to sidebar and tell. I'm debating as I'm saying it. I'm debating. It's like I have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, saying, "Don't tell this story, Jacques. Don't tell this story." I'm going to tell it. Joe and I want to say it's 98, 97, 98, and where I had driven the Southern route home. I moved out to LA. I had a college girlfriend, still great friends with her. Great friends with her family. She's just one of the most wonderful persons ever. And things didn't work out a couple years after we got there, and it was one of those. I think she missed her family. You know, it was a bad guy situation.
Right.
It was a not, but you know, we were together like 7+ years, and you know, college thing. It was tough. So we decided, you know, let's kind of take a break type thing. And she had like a 2-month hiatus. We had 2 dogs together. Fun fact, one of my 2 dogs that lasted 18 years named Grayson. so
You
yes.
named your son after a dog?
I did. I 100%. I named Grayson the dog after Nightwing. I named Grayson my son after that dog. Anyways, so then I have a couple months hiatus because we both worked on TV shows. We both worked on TV shows, and you would have 2 months off. So we're like, okay, we'll have 4 months off. The day she was flying in, like I had a friend from Boston, a couple days fly out, and we drove kind of the southern route home. Came back to Boston,
right.
And I was going to be here for a month and then drive back to LA. While I'm in Boston, local grocery store, I run into a really great friend from high school, his mom. And I dated the girl for a short time after high school when we went to the same community college for a while. This girl just amazing, like the hardest working person ever. She ran like this local hotel, like did like the overnight manager while she was still in high school. I mean, right.
Wow.
Had her shit together from Jump Street. Just brutal how together she was. And her mom's like, and I'm, I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to Detroit to see my friend Mike. And then I'm going to go through Chicago, see my cousin Mary. And then we'll go. She's like, oh, if you're going to Chicago, she's in Chicago. You got to stop and say hi. Cool. So this is pre, I think it's pre cell phone. I was working on Touched by an Angel. I might have had a cell phone or maybe just a beeper at that point. And so whatever, no email, a couple phone, but her job was like 80% travel. So it was 50, I was going to say 50-50, 20% chance she was going to even be in Chicago. She was. Right. I haven't seen her in a decade at this point. She lives on the 3rd or 4th floor of this apartment building. And, I was just me being me. And it's like, I put on like the bathing suit, Hawaiian shirt, put like sunblock on my nose. We show up at like 11 o'clock at night and I knock on the door and she opens. I'm like, hey, can you tell me where the pool is? She falls down laughing, and it was like, it was like, how you regress when you see somebody you haven't seen in a while and you just fall right into whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So we were going to be there for just 2 days. I think it was about a week later. The trip went very well. It went incredibly well. And, because Joe and I didn't really have a timeline. And right. So this person is an executive on the higher end side at the Swiss Hotel in Chicago. I did not understand how the world worked, Biff. I didn't know what a concierge was, let alone the concierge run a town. Like a concierge is one step above a mayor.
But I did find out that concierge is a relatively modern thing because I saw an article on the world's first concierge, which means that like the guy's like 85 years old. That's how old the concierge industry is, and it's pretty amazing how quickly they kind of started to dominate these big cities, right? But go on,
And so the Swiss Hotel, it's right on that street that like where the pier is, overlooks everything. It's gorgeous. They pointed out on the tour the architecture of it is very unique. And so what her job was, there's like 4 Swiss hotel properties in the U.S. There's one in Boston, the Drake Hotel in New York, I think one in Atlanta and Chicago. But she would have to go to all of them around. Like much, the people who have these jobs. She would have to go to. She would go away like 3 or 4 weeks in a row and do a week at each hotel doing training, and then come back to Chicago. So she makes the absolute hands down most galactic worst mistake in her life, and she falls for me, and she's like move here, and dude, it was so tempting. It was just everything about that trip there timed out perfectly. Joe and I went to a White Sox game, went to a Cubby game. We did all the sky, all the cools. It was a magic time. She is just such a fun, great girl. It worked out. I said no, I'm working on this TV show. This is really what I want to do, blah blah blah. And then she basically tells her company, it's like, yeah, I'm leaving, and they're like, hold on. Look, you're only here once a month, 1 week a month. We'll let you work out of a home office. Okay. And she calls and she's like, yeah, they're going to let me do this. I'm going to move to LA. And I'm like, great. worst mistake of her life. I mean, it's Biff, I'm now in my mid 50s, 2 kids, and I don't have any of my shit together now, as you know. Back then, like, and honestly, I'm less than like a month out of a 7-8 year relationship. Right. You know what I mean? It was impulsive. It was whirlwind. It didn't work out, and it didn't work out because I was just not in. I ended up playing hockey with this group on Friday nights, and there was another player there who came from, like, I think it was like Montana, who I ended up becoming friends with, and kind of threw a wrench into this. Dude, I will never stop feeling awful about it. It's the douchiest thing. Anyways, I tell you this because right where we got on the tour, where we drive in, we park. Yeah. We had a nice lunch, but we have a couple hours to kill before, this tour. And Ellen's like, oh, a mile away, there's this art installation called Sky Cloud or whatever, but everybody calls it the Bean. It's called the Bean in Chicago. If you look it up, it's awesome. Okay. Hey, let's walk up there. So we walk down, parallel the river for maybe a half mile. You go up these 2 flights of steps underneath the raised like subway line and stuff. And you come out and I'm looking right at the Swiss Hotel. And I'm like, oh my God, this is where it all started. And it just, the wave of all the great stuff came back, and the wave of, you really fucked this person over. You will burn for an eternity for this. And like I said, she couldn't have made a worse trip. But it's funny. So it became every time we walked past it or drove past it, like the rest of the week, management would just point at it, look at me, shake her head, and just, anyway, so I told that story. I put it out there. I'm the worst person on the planet. And dude, literally randomly, I think we're like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I ended up, I'm not on any of the socials. I'm not on Facebook. I don't look up old friends from high school. I'm not interested. I wish everybody the best, but I think I looked her up on LinkedIn, and I just wrote an apology. I'm like, look, I know this means nothing, and it's a long time coming, but I was completely the worst person in the world. No one has wronged anybody worse than this. I'm hoping everything works out for you. You deserve a great life. But I literally still carry it around with me, like periodically. I think, how did you do that? To just a super nice person. Why didn't you just decide, why didn't you have the balls to say, you know what, let's take a beat, because I'm coming off of this thing. I'm doing this. Anyways, I'm the worst person, and I don't think anyone listening to this will disagree. So, well,
I mean, they will, but the list that comes after you is like, oh boy,
right? So you know what, Biff? Completely changing gears. Yeah. I watched, and I say this with pride. Yeah. I watched 9 Nicolas Cage movies in one night last week.
Can I name 9 Nicolas Cage movies?
Dude,
I probably can.
You can't. You can't name one movie I saw. I guarantee you can't name one movie. It was all these.
Wait, so you didn't see Raising Arizona?
Oh, dude, if you want to play this game, get the script, say a line, and I will tell you the line that came before and after it. It's one of my favorite movies.
Okay. Nope. Well, no. So that's not one of the ones you watched.
It was all these what would have been straight to video movies.
Oh, I see.
That were made for Hulu or made for Shudder or not made for, but and each and every. So what I would do, I would watch the trailer. I will say this. So I was super confused, because on the rundown you put in Nick Cave, and Nick Cave is a musician, and I said Nick Cave and the Egyptians,
and I'm thinking he did movies, and I was kind of confused. I didn't have time to Google this.
Sorry, I apologize.
No. So now it all makes sense.
So I watched the trailer, watch the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, watch the last 20 minutes. Okay. So each movie took me about 30-35 minutes.
Okay.
I will say all of them were pretty decent. All of them, if you watch the trailer, you got exactly, there was no M. Night Shyamalan twist in any of these things. Yeah. How you thought each movie was going, if you were going to play a drinking game or a betting game, Like, this is how it's going to end. Not all of them were happy Hollywood endings. Like, some of them were like, oh, I feel stuff now. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the bad guy didn't get his comeuppance, or oh, these people didn't get the fortune that they had coming to them. And I would look at, Wikipedia, not to be confused with Wikipedia. And some of these movies were like $5 million budgets, $4 million budgets, like that. He got half of the budget.
right.
I'm serious. That he got half of it, and it was one of those things where you watch a movie and it's like, oh, you might want to watch this next, and I'm like, you know what? I do want to watch this next. Dude, I watched 9 of them.
And thinking about it as you mentioned it, like, what's a recent movie that he's done that's that's something? And I don't know what that is.
Did you see Kick-Ass 2?
I did not.
It's
is that
fucking great.
That's even like 6 years
that's
old.
10 years old. Yeah.
10 years old? God.
So there's a new movie that we've been wanting to watch all summer.
Chloe Grace Moritz, is that her name?
Who's
isn't that the she was the little girl at the time, no longer a little girl, but
right.
I think Chloe Grace Moritz, I think it's her name. Huge Islanders fan.
I will never I will never not feel robbed that they didn't do a Kick-Ass 3. And it was one of those pissing contest over who owned the rights to it type thing that dragged on to the point where they lost anyways. Kick-Ass. But there's a new Nicolas Cage movie where he plays himself. Okay. And Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, is this rich guy on an island who gives him $1 million to spend the weekend with him. He's like a super fan. Right. And Nick Cage, playing Nick Cage, like, desperately needs some money because he's made a lot of bad business decisions, which parallels his real life, flies down to spend the week with him. And it becomes this bromance. I forget what it's called. It's in the theaters now. It looks awesome, but it's one of those things that management and I really want to see it together, but we're not even in the same continent right now. She's in phase 3 of the Duran Duran tour. She's over in London right now, but yeah, and again, Fun Bags was over the other day and just sitting there, and she was talking to management, and I wanted to watch something, but I didn't want to start something new or something management and I watching together. So I'm like, I threw on episode 1, season 1 of Ted Lasso. 5.5 hours later, Funback left after watching the entire first season with us.
There you go.
And she kept saying, like, I gotta go, but one more episode. So, they said it couldn't be done, Biff, or did they say it shouldn't be done? I can't remember, but either way, that's how how are you spending your time of trying to avoid the awful?
Just watching a lot of stupid stuff on YouTube, and of course, I did go to a concert last Friday, so that kind of stuff helped.
And who did we see?
We saw Nemophila, the all-female kind of a thrash metal Japanese all-girl band. Fantastic band. I mean, just technically, just super proficient band. They're like
2 guitarists.
Was that?
A 2 guitarist band.
2 guitarists, yeah.
How big's a keyboard? A 5-piece, a 6-piece?
It's a 5-piece, twin guitars, vocals, bass, and drums. The drummer is just a tiny chick. She's probably like 5'3", and it's like sounds like drums coming out of Slayer. What's 5'3" chick?
A double bass pedal, or does she have the double bass drums?
Oh yeah, it's the kick pedal. She uses that kick pedal thing, right? So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any opening act of that you?
No, yeah. So that was what was great about it. So they actually put it together real fast. I want to say I heard about it maybe 3 weeks before the show, and it was on a July the 1st, which I thought was okay. Holiday weekend, Friday, interesting night to pick. And then and they picked a Whiskey, which is a tiny venue. I think Whiskey is like what, 500 people probably, right? And the tickets were $15, super cheap. But what they were doing is that they're going to they film the entire show. They're gonna stream the entire show in about a week, and so the price for watching the streamed version is like $35 Japanese in Japanese order. So more than double to not see them live, right? But what they did was, as a teaser, they showed like the first 2 songs of the concert live on YouTube streaming. And so by doing that, that meant that, I know exactly when they're coming on, because they said that they're going to start this live stream, at basically 8 p.m. Pacific time. So I was out of there before 9:30. It's like,
what a win! Win.
Crazy. I've never been out of, so aside from the times where I've had friends who essentially did the I'm going to be a star thing and helped them out, or went to see them or whatever, right? Except for those gigs, never been out of the whiskey so freaking early. So,
dude, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I may have caught a disease, or being the state of things being what it is. Who knows? But I'm just putting my faith in my boosters. Thank you very much.
All right. So enough with the world doesn't suck. We're going to get into the world sucks. So,
oh my God, we got a list. Where are we starting?
A week after we left Chicago, and management came back, it was like 2 or 3 days after. Yeah, no, she came back on July 2nd. Right, she came back on July 2nd. 2 days later, right, that shooting happened essentially in the town that we were. That's where her. And I put on the rundown, and I'm not being funny. I'm not making light. This is a serious question, because my wife's boss is friends with one of the victims. It made me think, it's like, how far away are we from having 1 degree of separation with somebody involved in that? You know what I mean? It's like, they happen so much. It's like, no, I haven't been to Buffalo in many years. And then I just drove through that, and you know what I mean? But as soon as I heard like Tops, I'm like, that's a Ralph's of Buffalo. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like, I don't live there. It's not close to home, and this is Chicago, and it's not close to home in Texas. But honestly, this woman goes to the same synagogue that my wife's boss's entire family tree goes. She's an events planner, and between my wife's boss's brother and sister, there's 5 kids who have had bar mitzvahs in the last like 6 or 7 years. They're all in that age. Right. This woman was the party planner of 4 of the 5 of them. One of them having just been in May. So the whole family has a relationship with this woman, and it's like, we got more gun stuff to talk to. But again, the story in the picture of a 2-year-old kid, found covered in his parents' blood, and then you have a piece of shit like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying it's a false flag.
Yeah. When the dad basically gives up his life to shield his 2-year-old, right? I mean, that's that thing. I mean, so much of that is just heart-wrenching,
And the whole thing.
That 80-year-old boy who got shot in the chest and went, I guess, through, and that severed his spinal cord, and it's like, what? It's like
an old guy in a wheelchair was like hit like 7 or 8 times, something like that. And again, it's the same thing. It's like, it's not the guns, it's a mental health issue. And the parents, and it's true. It's like, I guess within the last year, or a year ago or 2 years ago, the kid threatened to kill his whole family and kill himself. The family called the police. The family felt the need. Yeah. Hey, we're going to take this serious. The cops come, and I don't want to just make up a number, but it was like a dozen swords and knives to confiscate from the kid. Right. A year later, with no court-ordered therapy or anything like that, dad feels, I feel completely well within reason to sign, for him to get a half a dozen assault rifles.
Yeah. I mean, listen. Yeah, I mean that thing, just the fact that he's I think more recently said that he has no regrets doing that, which is just, oh my God, that just blows my mind. I don't know, like I can't even imagine living with that, right? Where like somebody that I had even a tiny hand in that outcome, right? So that that just blows my mind. But I mean, when it comes down to it, we're at a point where it's every time this stuff happens, it's the same thing, right? I mean, somebody blames, well, this is what we have to do, and really, you know what, nothing gets done, and I'm at a point where, you know what, please just stop talking and just do freaking something, just do anything.
Well, I mean, and go argument by argument.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
The way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Yeah,
well,
no.
this, what we saw down in Texas, a SWAT team was afraid to go in. Yeah. A SWAT team was afraid. The SWAT team with bulletproof vests, Kevlar training, all of this stuff was afraid of one person with a gun. And so there goes that. This is a parade that had police all over the place. Yeah. And it's like so there goes your whole good guy with a gun theory. Of course, and I love how people like don't politicize it. It's like, yeah, the kid the guy in Buffalo wrote out, I don't want to call it a manifesto. It sounds too, too posh for a piece of shit like that. But he wrote this lengthy racist rant. I mean, he wrote the N-word on his gun. He drove to a black community to do this. Yeah. This is a heavily Jewish community. And this kid, there's pictures all over the net of him wrapped in a Trump flag. It's like, and then of course it's
So what I'll say is this: like, the fact that he did all that, in the end, I don't really give a crap. I'm at a point where I don't really give a crap about some of the individual stuff. I just give a crap about, actually somebody doing something, passing some kind of a law or some kind of a, measure to actually curtail this. I really don't give a shit.
But it's not going to happen. And that's the worst thing is we know nothing, because after the shooting in Texas, they decide, oh, we're going to go after Beto O'Rourke for standing up. We're going to go after all right. Who's that actor who's from the town? Why am I blanking?
McConaughey, right?
McConaughey, right? They go after him. And then there was this three-person shot in a shopping mall in Denmark, and you had so many GOP senators and Congress people taking a victory lap, saying, "See, mass shootings, like they have strict gun laws." It's like, okay, there hasn't been one there in a decade. There might not be another one in a decade, but before their ink dried on their tweets gloating about the people dying there. Yeah. 3 people, not 19 children, 3 people. Then you had this, it was a week apart, 2 weeks apart, it's, and I don't know, Biff. And then of course, what happened in your homeland last night, when you have people saying, oh, see, so why don't you talk a little bit about that? Yeah. That awful.
Well, I don't know. So obviously, I think people who are by now, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, assassinated by some guy who, and I still haven't really seen a solid kind of motive. I know they're questioning him and they're trying to get to the roots of it. Still, but I still haven't seen a great motive. But it has been apparently it's apparently not political in nature, and maybe has to do with a person. So who knows, right? And we obviously our good former guest, Professor Cook, asked to, if it's not political, like what could it be? And so I'm thinking, and it's a little extreme comparison, but I would say that maybe there are some, former presidents of this country where people, may, irrelevant of any of the politics, maybe they might not like that person for whatever reason, and they decide, I don't like that person because this person is, does all these heinous things, and decides, so maybe it's along those veins, along that vein. That's possible, I guess. But yeah, I don't really want to speculate in terms of what their motivation is. But what I will say is this: is so the American coverage of this has been freaking super annoying. And when I say that as a as a Japanese nationalist, I said, America, not everything is about you. Okay.
What? So, wait. Are you sure?
And so when you start talking about all the, somehow like this has some kind of an impact on the domestic, gun issues and the gun control issues. Yeah, you know what? It doesn't. It's something else. It's like being annoyed at how long a baseball game is, and you talk about how football games are lengthy. You know what? 2 different sports. Okay, they're both lengthy, and they're both lengthy for different reasons. and what I mean, there's just there's nothing to really talk about. The issue really here to me, because as a I don't really think that people are more scared to be out and about because a very specific person was targeted for this. I don't think that they think that now random yahoos are going to make these homemade guns and start randomly shooting random people, right? Or maybe there's some somebody that's after my money, that's a relative, is going to create this homemade gun and randomly shoot. If you're going to do a targeted murder, they're going to do the usual stuff that they already do, which is whatever, suffocate, run them over with a car, stab them with a knife. That's all going to be the same.
Wait, hold on. I'm making a list. You give me some good ideas here. Tell me about the gun.
The gun apparently is a 3-barrel gun that apparently had like 6 shots each in it. And I don't know the details of the mechanism, but apparently they not surprisingly, they searched his home and they found his computer had a history of sites that told you how to make homemade weapons. That's a kind of shock, right? So who knows what what this was, and what was in there. A lot of I don't think I have not actually seen anything about like specifics in terms of like he said they had 6 rounds in there. So I don't know what that means, right? I don't know if that means he actually got a hold of actual bullets and stuffed 6 bullets in there. It didn't seem like that would actually happen. I thought it would be more likely that he had some kind of a projectile, like kind of like a BB kind of a thing, but bigger. Like in Japan, they have these pachinko balls that's a little bit bigger. Maybe stuffed 6 of those in each barrel. Who knows, right? But so I think a lot of the details are still forthcoming. But yeah, and I think ultimately this really speaks to in terms of are there. It's really about kind of just general security. I think in the same way that a lot of the protests against Supreme Court justices are kind of creating these things about how lawmakers are saying, oh, we need more, we need laws to protect SCOTUS and stuff like that. I think it's really going to impact them along those lines. Like, let's say maybe that means that they have laws that allow the government to have surveillance on people who visit these kind of anarchy sites from within Japan and crap like that. I think that that's really the kind of stuff that's going to happen rather than anything that has to do with firearm control, because hey, guess what, they got that under control.
It's with 3D printing and stuff like that. Yeah. It's look, awful stuff's going to happen, but there's a difference between that guy having access to unlimited amount of AK-15s with unlimited ammo.
I think, and the other thing that's different is that mass murders have occurred in Japan, but because and you know what? Guess what? There's other ways of doing mass murders without guns too. If your motivation is mass murder, it's just that you can't necessarily do it everywhere, because there was a huge incident where a cult group essentially pumped sarin gas into a subway air ventilation system and killed a bunch of people. Right now, that stuff's not going to work during a parade. Not that there's many parades in Japan, but it's not going to work in a parade. So obviously there are some restrictions on that, but still, like if people are motivated to do mass killings, there's and that's a challenge that law enforcement everywhere has, right? So
and then yeah, I mean, how many murders are on the hands of the crazy 88s?
Well, I mean, but did they deserve it?
They did. No, they deserved it, but before that happened. But anyway, so now that hockey's wrapped up, you have more time to watch other things, and it looks like you've been watching the January 6th hearings.
No, I refuse to watch that. It's just gonna. You know what? I just can't. I can't do it anymore. I can't do any of this anymore. I saw the highlights.
I see the highlights. I saw brief highlights, but I've read some of it. It's kind of easier to read it, I think, than to actually watch it. Watching it is, for some reason, just a little bit more painful. So I've kind of stayed away from it and just try to get the synopsis from the various outlets and stuff like that. But So quickly, what are your thoughts about? I mean, was there anything that you heard that surprised you in the last couple of weeks, or did it just confirm what you thought?
Well, I mean, well, so the whole idea that Trump wanted to go to the Capitol and threw a fit, like the fact that he didn't understand logically that would be a really bad idea. That was, I mean, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, obviously, having it all kind of laid out, I get it. It's kind of in line with who he is and stuff like that. But that whole line of stuff, that I think that was the one thing that was a shocker. That like he's just, the fact that he's just not, not smart enough to figure out that, yeah, you know what, it's bad. It's like he does, like to some degree he probably understands how bad what he's doing is to a point, but he probably feels like, essentially, just like the main people who essentially jumped in there, they thought they were going to be in the right historically, and that's why they were somehow fulfilling some just cause, right? Obviously, that's where they're misguided, but to the degree to which he just whatever you want to call it, cognitive dissonance, whatever.
No, it's and the fact that he wanted the metal detectors taken away.
Yeah, all that whole thing is just
I mean, he wanted them to come. I mean, even though there's all these gun laws in D.C., he wanted them to bring all their guns. And then the people were saying, "Oh, that didn't happen." Some Secret Service people say, "You know what? That 25-year-old girl put her hand on the Bible for whatever that's worth, took an oath, or you know what I mean, and she was under oath and spoke. Why don't you guys come on? I'm quite sure the January 6th people will make time for you to come in. The networks would love to hear your side of the story. Why don't you say whatever you have to say under oath and not under Twitter?"
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is that it just amazed me that this was. I just saw it as an extreme version of the wink wink nudge nudge. I didn't think that he was, I thought that it was one of those deals where he was saying all these things, but like ultimately would have plausible deniability, as they say it in Independence Day. So, and it really wasn't that. Like that he was willing to essentially be, front and center on that whole thing. So
what is it? What is the security? What little security they had at the Capitol that day going to do if the president wants to come in? And here's the other thing: Mike Pence knew they were going to kill him.
Yeah,
Mike Pence knew the Secret Service was in the fix, and if he got in that car with them, he's not coming back.
Yeah,
he's Abe Vigoda and Godfather. He
saw the movie. He had the advantage because he saw the movie. So,
but he wouldn't get into the car. But yet he's still out there not talking shit and is afraid to cross these people.
Yeah,
it just makes you want to take your plate of food and do the old Brian Day and throw it against the wall. I didn't order it to go.
Okay, you went there.
Yeah, guys. That story is just out there for Mr. Taylor. But yeah, like I see that you're looking at that as your Halloween costume.
That's I was like, isn't that going to be like, are they selling like that? Basically, kind of you're wearing this white sheet with ketchup stains, and I'm the East Wing Wall or the West Wing Wall or whatever the hell it is, right?
Oh, I didn't have this as one of my jokes to lead off, but bear with me. Let me see if I can workshop this. So two rapists walk into SCOTUS as judges because they were appointed, overturn Roe versus Wade. Oh wait, that's not really a joke. That happened.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Brett, I like beer Kavanaugh, and is that a pube on your Coke can? Husband of insurrectionist Clarence Thomas have overturned, like, what the fact that those two guys who have credible allegations substantiated about sexual misconduct have truly, in this country, a raper has more control over his victim's life than she does.
Yeah.
You rape somebody, you impregnate them, and then you get joint custody of the child, because this person is Biff. And now all these things that people said wouldn't happen. They're already starting to try to get laws on the books in states that regulate a woman's cycle, that they could track a woman's cycle, that they can't get medicine mailed to them, and that they can't leave the state and go to another state.
Well, yeah, right. And I think I saw that. I'm trying to remember which state it was, where like some state which already only has like 4, these Planned Parenthood organizations now have like basically said they will not provide services to out of state visitors and stuff like that, because
I think that was Montana. Yeah,
they don't think they're they're legally protected, right? That kind of stuff. And I guess Biden, I think today mentioned, I guess anecdotally, I have to find out what actually happened, but a poor 10-year-old girl, victim of rape, and she had to go
in Ohio. In Ohio, right?
She had to go from Ohio to Indiana to get her abortion, which
I'm surprised in Indiana hasn't had all these laws, because Indiana's Mike Pence's old state. So a 10. I mean, and this is, and again, it's been talked about for a few weeks, and you and I are on the right side of this, but I'm learning things in real time that I didn't know. There are some states that have a zero excuse, even if it means the mother is going to be at risk of dying. Now, in the Jewish religion and the Muslim religion, it's like you save the mother.
Right.
I mean, that's so now.
Wait. Did you say the Jewish religion?
I did.
So, and you're saying that their religion says they believe that religion says, and so what? So, what kind of a religious document do they use?
It's what is that thing called? What is that thing called? It's really old. It's really old. I give you these Lord's 15, 10 commandments. No, but both in the Quran and in the Old Testament, the mother's life is what is important. And honestly, let's face it, it's
which is kind of ironic, right? Because like in the Old Testament, that was a freaking that was an angry God, right?
But you got to look at it. You got to look at it like this. It's like if we built this car, we can drive this car, but it's going to blow up the factory. So we need to not have this one car manufactured so we can keep the baby factory going. That's essentially why they want to protect the woman, in that case. But really,
the point I'm making is that, like, we have the kinder, gentler Bible, which is the New Testament, and then the people who essentially purport to live by those codes are the ones that are like, say, the mother might have to die, but that's the sacrifice. It's like, I kind of thought that Jesus guy really didn't work that way, but obviously I'm not an expert, so I'm getting these things secondhand, but seems ironic.
It's just all the things. Honestly, I've actually, management has talked to some people. We live in a place where we're trying to figure out our moving situation, our living situation, but if we're going to be here, are we in a position where we can host people who need to come to Massachusetts to have a medical situation, things? It's like, are we going to have to be part? No, I don't want to say have to. Are we going to become part of an underground railroad? And I'm not diminishing the Underground Railroad and what that meant, but this is the same thing. It's very much. So
one of the things that I did see that I thought was really, really good advice was that, don't just kind of do this, there are people who actually do this, and they're organized and they have legal advice. Don't be the guy that goes on Twitter and say, "Yo, come to my house," right?
Yeah, no.
Right? That's the one thing. If you do it with an organization that is known to know, if you're going to be part of it, you're going to have to get training, and you're going to have to get all.
I'm not going to do any of that, but I will.
Well, no, I'm saying it for just in general, right? Just a general thing, right? I think that's important. That this is not, you want to do it right.
Just like during the pandemic, we volunteered for the very smart people, very organized, to put together the food drives. I just showed up and they gave me my list of people to take the food to, and I did it, and I was happy to be part of that. So this is the same thing. It's like we'll figure out, how we can help, where we can help, but it's one of those things where we are on the precipice of, and they said it's 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It's like, yeah, we're headed towards the Handmaid's Tales. We're there. But while we're talking religion, there's not all bad religion stories. I mean, look, I don't like organized religion for a lot of reasons, but I don't tell people they can't, this or that. I don't really understand the whole thing about like communion and all that stuff, but I understand it's a big thing to people. And a couple people who have been denied the ability to receive the communion.
Yeah, that's freaking, she's kind of somebody flexing it, right? It's like, yeah, right. So that I guess the Archbishop of San Francisco, I guess, basically denied communion to Nancy Pelosi for her essentially pro-life stance. So I guess she kind of went to the boss and got it from the Pope. It's like, okay, that's a flex, right?
That's a pretty A-list flex.
That's a flex. Yeah.
And it's funny because I think Biden wasn't giving communion last year by local, and I don't know if that guy's been demoted or whatever, but it's like, yeah, you and again, we could go on forever. It's like, wait, you're supposed to preach the word of the people who make the judgments. You're not supposed to be out there making judgment. But I mean, that's what scares me. It's like, just again, while we're talking religion, all the laws in the past couple of weeks where they're like, yeah, the football coach can pray. And it's not that the football coach can't pray after the game. Sure, go ahead. You can kneel down and pray all you want. It's the kind of, the like you said earlier, the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's like, hey, who's ever not over here praying with me after the game? Good luck getting, on the field next week.
Yeah. And I do want to make that important distinction between, like, it's like one of those things where there are all of these bad things that are being driven by, I think, certain groups that are religiously based, which is very different from saying, religion, it's not like, I think there's this whole categorization of religion, this kind of thing. And it's the same mentality of, just because, there's a lot of racism, it's not immediately this, like white people this, right? This is, it's the same mentality that seems to go out there, in the social media and everywhere else. I think it is really important to note that, like, I know, obviously I have, let's say, LGBTQ plus friends who actually go to church because their church, is accepting, like, they may even have like gay pastors and so on, right? So it's, obviously it's just, it just so happens that, some subsets are doing these things, and they're, for whatever reason, have a lot of power right now.
So and I'm guessing, let's say this high school football coach who wasn't fired, he just didn't have his contract renewed.
Right.
And then it gets all the way to Supreme Court. But I'm guessing if he was a brown guy with like Middle Eastern descent who, after a football game, got out his prayer rug and faced Mecca, I'm quite sure they would have been just as working hard for his rights to say his prayers. Correct? You think so? No.
But I guess doesn't that open it up for them to be able to do that?
Well, yes, but good luck trying that. Like, you know what I mean? I'm quite sure.
I get it, right? But so
but,
it is.
So
I just feel like there's going to be some unintended consequences. So we'll see.
Let's move on to some happier stuff. COVID's all done, right? We beat that.
Oh,
yeah, we have our big victory celebration. Remember back then when COVID was a thing? Thank goodness that's in the rearview mirror, and we don't have to worry about it anymore, ever.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, that BA5. Apparently it's like a sneak. So call it whatever you want. That BA5 apparently real sneaky guy. Just kind of passes through all of that. The bodily protection. That says, yeah, hey, I'm here.
It's my mom is she's tested negative now, but she kind of had a low grade long-term COVID thing the last month. Hasn't felt good for a month, and double boosted and all that stuff, but still, part of, we had the wrench thrown in because I was planning on being out there in a couple of weeks, and we were just texting about that. Yeah, my sons were so excited about coming out to do a week of growling theater improv classes. it was what's the word? Not cheap, and but worth it. Like the flight out. We got the place to stay, so it's like, yeah, the flights are expensive and the classes are expensive, but their cousin, who's very successful, went through the Growlings, came and saw them act, and said, definitely do it. It's worth it. They'll be great. They'll have a great time, great experience. So we're like, you know what? Let's do it. And then just about 2 weeks ago, got the email saying, yeah, all classes are canceled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I wrote back, I'm like, they're both boosted and have their vaccination cards. Can you set up camps for vaccinated, boosted kids who are willing to wear masks? And they're like, no. So that it does. So, my mom's had it. And like I said, she had COVID a year ago, but she's had both her things. And, my dad, it's weird that he hasn't tested positive for it, but he's had cold-like symptoms, like low grade, medium grade cold-like symptoms for a month, just like she has. So, it's just, and it's funny because management is over in London now, and there's no masks anywhere, and so she's like, yeah,
like this country.
Yeah, we're just asking for it. It's the new herpes, Biff. It's the new herpes. It just won't go away. Like crime and so we talked about the horror assassination. Getting back to the assassination just for a moment. The assassin. Do we know his stance on Jodie Foster?
Jodie Foster. I wonder if he knows who Jodie Foster is.
But is that the only crime plaguing Japan as we speak?
It's not. But you know what? And I don't know what happened to the video. So, but it is. Yeah, it's the same kind of stuff. We talked about enough crime. They had listen. When was the last time the United States had a former leader, assassinated? It's been a while. Japan won, U.S. nothing in the 21st century.
All right. So we won't talk about the laundromat thief going through the women's underwear.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. So, the thing that I did write in the thing is that the funniest part was that when they confronted him, when the police confronted him about it, they literally asked him, have you thought about how the victims would feel about losing their underwear? It's like, what a conversation.
Dude, that's just
what a conversation.
It's better than having a conversation. Did you really shoot this person because they put too much mayonnaise on your sandwich?
Yeah. Atlanta, Georgia, right? Yeah, that's right.
Dude, when I saw that, I didn't mean this. I'm not making light. People died. But how often do you have to double check your browser to make sure it's not the Onion?
Yeah. This is why I freaking tip all of my, restaurant people, a lot, because you know what? You guys don't get paid enough. They don't get paid enough for the crap that they have to take from the idiots, Yeah.
And Sue, every time we go through the drive-through and our order gets messed up or they're confused because of the boys, dietary and allergic thing, we got to be careful. And I always say that to the boys. If I have to repeat it 3 times, it's like, dude, look at the line behind us. Look at the line in front of us. It's like, this is a horrible thing that they have to deal with. Yeah. And it's like, let's not be those guys. Yeah. But on I don't know if we call it like happy news, but it's just weird that a 65-year-old case has some late developments. Emmett Till.
Yeah, right. So I guess they found an unserved warrant, like in the box in the basement in the whatever somewhere. So, and I guess she was basically, I guess, the kind of woman at the center of the original kind of motive for this. And I guess so I guess they're trying to serve that warrant. I guess the woman is still alive, allegedly in South Carolina or something like that. So kind of wacky, but yeah.
Well, as you said, when they find old Auschwitz scars hiding in the States or wherever, they get sent back and put and locked up. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just hope there's no statute of limitation on that kind of.
Yeah, I don't know how, and obviously that it's one of those deals where like the actual the district attorney or whoever, somebody, whomever is in the whatever has jurisdiction has to actually act on it, right? So, yeah.
So I got nothing in games really right now. No Joe self-indulgent theater, but since we last talked, the Avalanche raised the cup.
Yep.
And there's been some great cup stories and videos have come out. What's your favorite? Well, wrap up the cup. Tell us what you thought about like the finals and any
I guess what was great about it is like, let's say what you will about say Montreal and Dallas making the finals, and they're not great teams. Colorado, Tampa, two great teams and lots of skill. Tampa was a little bit injured, but obviously everybody's hurt this time of the year, so it is what it is. But just having just two great teams really go at it is that's what you want in a championship, right? So so even though it was only 6 games, I was hoping it'll go 7, but still a great finals run. And obviously the Avs finally ended up being who a lot of people thought they would be, this high-end team that is actually good enough to win the cup. So congratulations to them. And there's some and lots of funniness. Yeah.
Have you my favorite clip since the cup is at the parade, like
Bo and Byron, right? Yeah. Right. So go ahead. Yeah.
Well, kid, and they're babies. They're all babies, 23, 24, look 18. Yeah. And there's one of these guys who goes over, leaves the float to go over and say hi to some of his fans.
Yeah. Yeah.
He turns to go back to the and a cop stops him and he's like, get back over there.
Yeah. Yeah. The fans on the other side had to watch from him. He's part of the parade. He's on the team. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
And I saw somebody at some party raise a cup and just do the fall backwards.
Slightly, yeah. They may have been drunk. It's possible.
It's possible. How dare you supposed to say allegedly?
Allegedly. That's why I said they may have been. That's allegedly already. That's built in allegedly. I think what was great was I think it may have been Bo and Byron, the same guy that got detained by the police. Was basically said something about, I don't remember what happened the last 3 or 4 days. It's like, which is a freaking
bless you. Good for you. Right. Like
good for you.
Fair. I mean, statistically speaking, it's a once in a lifetime thing, kid.
Yeah, for them, but,
but it's hard to win it twice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite sure Marchand, who won in his rookie year and then went back 2 more times, it's like, it probably won't see it again, especially with the big shakeup here. They blow out the coach, but they keep the guys who gave him the team. You know what I mean? To build,
look, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews 3 times, right? I mean, Sidney Crosby, Malkin, Lieutenant.
No, look, it can happen.
3 times, right?
So now that the cup's over,
what I'm saying is that this Avs team is that good.
No, they're great. I mean, look. Yeah. I mean, the Lightning just won it back to back. The Lightning went 3 years in a row. It could happen, but I'm saying statistically speaking,
sure, absolutely,
it's a once in a lifetime thing. So go blow it out, kid. Yeah. And let's face it, the next time he wins it, let's say it's in 2 or 3 years, he might have a wife and a small kid at home that he can't go on a 4-day bender.
Well, he might actually remember some of those days the next
time. Exactly. Yeah. So what are you watching these days, Biff?
I watched Unrivaled because I can't get enough hockey apparently. So I watched Unrivaled. Great. So this is the kind of the story of the 90s rivalry between Colorado and Detroit that famously turned really, really ugly, involving one of your favorite players, Claude Lemieux. And there's a lot to the story, but at the heart of it is essentially 2 teams that were essentially the best in the league for a kind of a period of time. It was really those 2 and really New Jersey, maybe Dallas for a little bit of time also, but
like a 6-7 year window.
Right. There was where there was these 4 teams of which 2 of them hated each other, rooted in on a hit that essentially so Claude Lemieux basically hit Chris Draper kind of from behind just as he dumped the puck, threw his face into that separator thing and just destroyed his face, right? And then so that led to bad blood. And there's a lot of things that kind of sustained it, right? But the fact that Claude Lemieux to this day has not apologized for the incident, right? that probably, is one factor. But obviously, we're talking about bench clearing brawls on multiple occasions, including the goalies, right?
Yo, have there been better goalie fights?
I mean, what's funny is when Patrick Roy said, "I didn't know that fighting was so exhausting."
Yeah, because you got to skate half the length of the rink at least to get.
But I mean, all that fighting obviously is, and those guys are not used to doing it. They don't know really what they're doing, right? So they're probably very bad at it.
And the gear that they're those protectors, it's like, oh no, but that's great. And it's funny because people we know and love who live for this, like, wait, I didn't know that. Wait, I didn't know that. Those documentaries are just great.
Yeah, there's little things that I think, it was mostly like, I don't know that I actually got anything new except it's just more like, oh, I had forgotten these little details, right? Because it's been a while, but yeah.
I forgot about it, and I was searching the other day. I'm about wrapping up the docudrama called Pistols about the Sex Pistols on Hulu.
Okay, so that's yeah, I saw it, and it looked like it was a docudrama because I saw must be about the Sex Pistols, but those aren't the Sex Pistols. So.
And dude, the guy that they got playing Johnny Rotten is like, oh, you poor bastard. Is that really how you go through life looking like that? Or did they really make your teeth that fucked up? It's great. So Jones, the guitarist of the Sex Pistols, wrote a memoir like 5 years ago. So it's his words. It's his. So they admit it. Like, they've taken a couple liberties with this and this. Like, Chrissy Hines is a character in it. She was friends with the band. She was in the scene. It's funny. The bass player that kind of got thrown out of the band, subsequently over the last 40 years, as they've done reunions and festival shows, he comes back and play. I mean, he wrote 10 of the 12 songs on their albums.
Okay.
And he was the only musician in the band. Like, he was the only classically trained, knew what he was doing. Jones was a singer who Malcolm, their manager, was trying to make the next big thing, and he couldn't sing, and he didn't have any presence, and he had stage fright. So he essentially learned guitar in the matter of a couple weeks, right. Enough just to do this. So the drummer, totally underrated drummer from that era. The Sex Pistols drummer, Cook, is fucking awesome. But when you're in a band, it's one of those things. When you have such a personality like Johnny Rotten, and Jonesy and Sid Vicious and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of hard, to stand out, but he was a great drummer. The bass player, Glenn, was great. And again, like I said, he's come back into the fold a number of times, but it's great. It's really great. It's really great. It's really great. There's a couple things I won't get in too much into detail, but there's one Sex Pistols song, I'm singing in my head, she was a girl from Birmingham. She just had an unborn son. She was a case of insanity. Her name was Polly. She lived in a tree. Anyway, Bodies. The song is called Bodies. It's about a real person who had awful things happen to her. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, that's, when they dive into it, it's great. It's on Hulu. The other thing, so Joe is coming over tomorrow. I told you for the last few months, Joe and I are watching more movies together.
Also, wait, before we leave the Sex Pistols, I will say I lost all respect for Johnny Lydon in the 90s because I saw him in the streets of New York in this kind of what looked like one of those Burberry trench coats, carrying a Gucci shopping bag, and I said, yeah, you fucking sold out, your freaking punk roots. You're not a punk. You're a rich cranky old guy. You're such a fake.
I mean, I told the story. He was my neighbor for 7 years in Marina del Rey, and he used to walk around the neighborhood in Sex Pistols swag all the time. And the one time we interacted, he yelled at me, and it was so delicious. It was the best. Like, his wife is, honestly, she looks like somebody off Venice Beach who needs to get help and get into a shelter, and she's like Dutch royalty or something like that. So like he married it. And yeah, she's the woman's like 6'2", 6'1", 6'2",
Okay.
maybe weighs 90 pounds.
Oh,
but like I said, it's like we were living there for a couple of years before I found out he was our neighbor. And like literally, the old apartment, the loft in Marina Del Rey.
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it was one of those things. It's like once I knew it was him, and then I saw him all the time type thing, and it was so great that he's an asshole. But it's great. The documentary is great. A lot of fun. So Joe came over last week, and it's one of those things where I love when we watch movies that we both know. I would have loved to watch the movie we watched last week with Joe, me, and Mr. Taylor, because it's one of his favorite movies, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh, that's a fantastic movie.
Oh, yeah. And because I say stuff all the time to Joe, it's like, you keep thinking, Butch, that's what you're good at. It's like,
I mean, you look at that cast, right? That's freaking royalty, right? Because you're talking about obviously, Newman and Redford. I mean, Catherine Ross was. I mean, obviously, did she just come off of The Graduate? I can't remember which came first. I kind of feel like she did The Graduate first.
She did The Graduate. Then this Cloris Leachman. Cloris Leachman is Paul Newman's, hooker girlfriend in it and stuff like that. Oh, dude, it's just so quotable. It's just so fucking quotable. And so Joe enjoyed it. So now, so that's great. He's coming over tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to watch. I'm still pushing him as hard as I can. I mean it. I really want to do the Get a Life podcast, going episode by episode of our collective favorite show. Chris Elliott only lasted 2 seasons. Oh my God. Is that a great show?
Have you guys watched like Buckaroo Banzai?
No, that I don't think that's like either one of like on our list, but I don't, but and then what did we watch?
I'm surprised. I thought that would be a kind of film that you would have watched. So.
Well, see, that's the fun thing, because there's films that I'll bring up or that he'll bring up that you would assume the other one would have watched. Yeah. So part of this is like watching stuff that we haven't watched together, or watching stuff together that we absolutely watched before and love together, like A Time to War. Or, hey, how have you not seen Buckaroo Banzai? Let's watch that. And then we ended up watching, I forget what outlet it is, but there's some outlet that has like different streams, and it's like the Sanford and Son channel, and it's just a stream of all that. And so we watched a couple Sanford and Sons.
Yeah, there's like I saw that there's a Baywatch channel. Saying, really? Like people want to watch this shit all day,
dude, all day.
I mean, Sanford and Son. I get that. That 100% makes sense. Baywatch.
And as soon as Joe put it on, I'm like, I hope it's a Grady episode. And honestly, like a World War II vet coming home on BJ Day, when Grady walked through the door, both Joe and I leaped to our feet, and it was great. It was great. And we're sitting there. Look, I'm having this podcast talking to you and 3 people talking about watching Sanford and Son with Joe. I understand how much of a loser I am, but I'm a pretty happy loser, Biff. I'm a pretty happy loser.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
You got a parenting tip?
Parenting tip. You know what? I will say, you kind of pray. It's not so much a tip as much as, you just kind of pray that your, child ends up being a kind kid. I mean, definitely Grayson is one of the kindest kids I've ever met, right? And so you kind of, wish for that. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but my son actually has a car now, and
you can skate around.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that recently, the wife's car has been acting up and stuff, and there's something about my, she could always take my car. There's something about my car that she's not really happy with, and and because she has to drive a longer distance for a commute, she doesn't feel as safe in it and stuff like that. So my son has been perfectly fine to let mom take his brand new car. It's not a new car, but his car, during the week for her commute, and him kind of drive my POS. Just so that she doesn't have that stress.
That's a good kid.
So just hopefully that's kind of what you hope for, right? That they have some kindness in them. right?
So your tip is not, don't sign consent forms for your child to get 5 automatic rifles. Okay.
Well, you know what? To be fair, I have not been put in that position myself. So and to start with, my son has not, threatened to kill all of us. So yeah.
It's funny when you mentioned my oldest guy, Grayson, is the sweetest. Yeah. I sent you the picture the other day, and I'll post it. Right. I have 2 kids. I have one kid who just is so empathetic and sweet and funny and smart and gorgeous. And I have another kid who's funny as hell.
He's hilarious.
Smart,
he is
gorgeous,
great.
And just an asshole.
But yeah, he's got a little bit of edge to him. He's a hilarious kid though. I love both of them, but yeah.
That's a dick. Yeah. And it's not like planned. They're getting on a ride.
Yeah.
They're 1 seat apart on a ride at Six Flags. And, moms, I always take pictures of everything we do and send it to her. And so the little guy's in front, and I didn't notice when I took the picture. And then I'm looking at it, and the one in back, the older, sweeter one, he's doing the American Sign Language sign for I love you.
Yeah.
And the other one is flipping me off.
The other one is giving you the New Jersey State bird.
If they say a picture says 1,000 words, I could go into deep dive psychovals of each of them. I would not encapsulate it as good as that one moment. But my parenting tip is they're as always, they don't want to do anything. And so even when we were in Chicago, the whole architecture tour thing and go see this art installation called The Bean. But I make them do things because physically I still can't. Right. And then they're so happy, like listening to their phone calls later with their friends. Oh, then we did this. Oh, and then we did that. Oh, we saw this. They're not smart enough to know what they're going to miss out on. So until they're at the point where you can't physically put them in a hold and drag them to the car and strap them in, take them to do shit. They will have fuller lives later. It's like, that time that Papa took us to do that stupid boat ride in Chicago, we could have been back in the hotel playing Fortnite another 6 hours. Right. So you know what? Yeah, make them do shit. Biff, I've missed chatting. This is great. We'll figure out next week or the week after. We'll figure sideshow. I'm looking at. I was cleaning the house the other day. I know you're not supposed to get more stuff, but I found a bunch of cards that I don't know where I got from, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to put them together and bring them to Biff because I don't know if you have Peter Savoda or Stefan LeBeau or no. Come on, you don't want this Craig McTavish. Are you telling me you don't want that Craig McTavish?
Don't bring those.
All right. I just don't know if Pat Verbeek. You don't want the Pat Verbeek.
Yeah. Don't
Anyways,
bring those.
Not that anyone was. Vincent Danfus. Weren't you the one saying, "Hey, if you ever come across a Danfus card?"
No,
that wasn't you.
No.
All right. Maybe it was Crazy Legs. Biff, I'm going to let you have the last word.
Well, oh boy. Hey, has there been a crazier 2-year period of news than the last 2 years? I mean, obviously, I wasn't around. Maybe things were pretty crazy in like 1864 and 1776. I'm guessing that things were pretty crazy back then. But man, just internationally and everything else, holy cow! It's been just one thing after another, and gosh. And I'm guilty as anybody else, that whole doom scrolling stuff, just kind of like just last night, I kind of ended up doom scrolling. Well, not really. I was just staying up to watch what they would announce on the Japanese news channel about what happened with the whole assassination stuff. But, there's just so much stuff that's going on. And and I think it's easy to get caught up in it. And that stuff just wrecks your mind. And so really, nothing important than your health, and your health is also your body and mind. So, if you really need to keep your mind healthy, don't forget.
Wrote a little lovely book. There's other lovely books to read. Trouble as you call it. fate, treated like a certainty. Judge the ones who don't agree with all your make-believe. I understand the desperate need for something more than meets the eye. To think that someone's in control, that somehow there's a reason why. But people kill and people die, all for make-believe. And it's only blasphemy if you believe the butcher homes, the rich man spends, and the shepherd tends his sheep. The children, darkness, made up things to explain all the wonder and the suffering. Now you're older and you know more, but still you cling to all that make believe. It's only blasphemy if you believe the butcher homes, the rich man spends, and the shepherd tends his sheep. The butcher homes, and the rich man spends, and the shepherd tends